Welcome to the Advertising Forum. This is episode 1 of our currency series, sponsored by ComScore.
Today we have Karen Babcock, the Vice President of Advertising Strategy and Partnerships at Comcast Advertising, and Drew Kane, the Chief Transformation Officer of MediaOcean. We're here today to chat about currency and how it's evolving in advertising. Karen and Drew, thank you for joining us today.
Happy to. Excited.
So this question's really for both of you. How are you seeing currency evolving, especially with all the different platforms and solutions and ways to measure success? I'm curious to hear both of your perspectives. Maybe we'll kick it off to Karen first.
Awesome. So, just starting at the basics and just establishing what we mean when we say currency, right? We use all these fun words in advertising to make it nice and complex. So when we say currency, is it currency? Is it measurement, right? Currency is the act of counting impressions of which people will pay for. If you think about things as it relates to measurement or ROI, attribution is a separate and distinct space. So what we're really talking about right now is how do advertisers count and transact across the board with publishers. Spirit of simplicity. And I think right now in the space of multi-currency, one thing that's been really exciting is before, the idea of multi-currency was a nice to have. But now, even more so than it's ever been, it's a must have, especially whether it relates to the publishers themselves or the technology that's enabling it. Our buyers have to figure out how to, buy their hat in pesos, their shirt in euros, and their pants in dollars, and then figure out at the end of it, how does that make sense? Did the campaign work and how much did it cost? So allowing them the ability to plan against one currency across all media that they're buying feels like some of the most important work that we can do to evolve and continue to make sure that video and TV gets the share that it needs in the media mix. So that's why I'm excited to talk about it, because it's we have to do it. And if we don't, then that's a problem.
Absolutely, Drew. I'd love to hear your perspective on it as well.
I could not, I'm going to be here and echoing Karen. Karen, I've been saying that what you started with for so long, what I typically say is all currency is measurement, but not all measurement is currency. And that's, for me, such an ultimate truth of we need to support both. So what we're seeing is grow, more key performance indicators or KPIs. We are seeing more currency providers, meaning that, again, currency is there's a form of measurement I'm willing to transact on as a buyer and seller to agree on how someone is going to get paid and reconcile the transaction. At the same time, what gets us really excited about it is so much of what's being developed in measurement and currency is supporting the way that our space is changing, the way that media is being transacted, invested in. So when we say converged or video, it's no longer saying I have a national buy and I need to get my Nielsen numbers and that's it. It's really saying, whether I'm looking at a traditional demographic or an advanced audience or, these high value audiences that we have today. And how can I transact that? How can I reconcile it all? And I just look at two things, huge excitement about it. And then it also gives people a lot of agita and anxiety as well, because they're saying, how are we going to make all of this work? And that's where I think both of our teams jump in.
So you mentioned juggling different currencies. I love the example you gave, Karen, about buying in different currencies and figuring it out. But what are the operational challenges? And I guess this would be more towards you, Drew, from a platform perspective. What are some of the operational challenges you try to address? And then also from a media buying perspective, what are some of the challenges that you have? So maybe we'll start with Drew on this one.
Sure. Number one thing, think about the industry that we're in. We are not talking about, I'm going to the store and I want to buy a candy bar for whatever they cost today. We're talking about billions of dollars being transacted. So first and foremost, operationally, anything that we're doing needs to be able to scale. We need to be able to operate at scale, not with one-offs. And the second part of it is, this is not just simply, I have a new currency or measurement, get me the data and I'm done. This is really a table of data, people, process, and technology, not living in a vacuum. So as soon as I have this data source, that's not enough. What I need to be mindful of is, who are the players and how are they looking to use this data? How do I support a transaction? And that's, process, but also technology. Karen's at Comcast Advertising. And then you've got others that have their own technologies. We're trying to solve this so that everyone can operate in the space. So the challenge becomes providing solutions that everyone can take advantage of and that we can scale up, because at the end of the day, we want scale, efficiency, and frictionless ability to do these things.
Karen, we see you nodding.
I'm nodding. I am a
We're going to do everything, Karen.
Yes.
Which is okay.
It is.
But
It feels good, Drew. It feels good. I'm a recovering yield and pricing individual. So within Comcast advertising, so obviously we have our technology side, but we also are a publisher where we monetize local avails across the US footprint where Comcast is distributed. So as a publisher, my first thought is how do we find a way where across the board, so as Drew and all the great work the technology providers are doing to enable multiple currencies to be transacted, how do, as a publisher, I receive something and now I have an inventory avail that pops up. I have a buyer that comes in that's using iSpot. I've got one coming in using Comscore and one coming in using Nielsen. Who gets it? So I think one of the big things as we talk about operational challenges is how do publishers take a moment, figure out what I'm calling their decoder ring, right? The translation layer so they can have multiple currencies coming in since they are advertiser driven to figure out what the cost of their outfit is. But at the end of the day, we need to know and have a way to pull that all back in to provide the ability to make that decision for whether that relates to what's the price or who gets what avails, and to support the stewardship and planning for all these different types of currencies as the advertisers themselves are getting more and more advanced. So that part for me is, again, recovering yield person is the thing I think about almost every day because you can't create 10 separate and distinct prices. You need to have one that you can translate, frankly, into as many layers as you need to.
So let's talk about comfort. Let's talk about consistency. Let's talk about all of the data inputs that are taking place between CTV, linear, digital, walled gardens. It's everywhere, as we all know. And so how do you ensure consistency and comparability across all currencies, all metrics? When you're at MediaOcean, when you're at Comcast Advertising, you're seeing so many billions of different impressions and clients and brands and agencies that are measuring thousands of different metrics. Let's talk about consistency here.
Yeah, I think that's what's a new space for our world right now. To your point, Jeremy, everybody's going into different directions. There isn't one way of doing business, right? We came from the land of, Nielsen and frankly, driving tapes from point A to point B so they run on live linear television. Thankfully, we're not there. We're a lot more advanced than that. But this idea of how do we enable buyers to buy how they want and not push them into a box. I think that's one thing that TV and video has learned as of recently is we have to find a way to enable the demand where they are, meet them where they are today. And that's where things like how do we find the decoder ring? How do we understand, to Drew's earlier points, how to enable the planning of these as they come through our pipes? But we also have to help the agencies build up history to really drive and inform the media mix, right? Our favorite MMM, there's a 3-letter acronym. The media mix that they're seeing, and is this a good deal, is really critical right now. And if the agencies themselves don't have access to that information, how will they buy differently? They won't know if the deal you're selling them in a new currency is any different than it was in the old. So I think that from an overarching consistency and comparability perspective becomes mission critical if we're going to continue to advance currency and measurement for video.
Great response. Drew.
for sure. Similarly, you're working with a couple of things here. On the one hand, there's some areas where consistency becomes hugely important. And let's stay with, we'll be a little old school and talk about, linear national TV. There you have to ensure consistency. So, we worked with and are supporting, Nielsen, VideoAmp, Comscore, and iSpot. And in those conversations, when someone says, I've been guaranteed on, an average commercial minute viewed with 3-day offset, that has to be the same for everyone. There is no arguing what that is, right? ACM or C3, because I'm throwing in 3-letter acronyms and 2, you need to be able to do that. And I don't think there's room to not, though they each have their own methodology and you have to honor that you will honor that methodology and support it. When you look at data, we've been calling it our four V's of data. There's volume of data, just the amount that we're supporting now, the variety, all these different sorts of data, the velocity. It's no longer I'm waiting till, 2 weeks after everything's run to have it. I have it with immediacy. And that's where we've been focusing a lot of our energies. Now, the veracity of the data, the truth of the data, If we're supplying that data set, that's us. But that's really very often the provider that you're looking at, or an MRC or a JIC or someone that's, certifying it because that helps other people. We're not making this blanket statement that without certification, you can't transact. But what we are, now I'm going to get in trouble, but what we are saying is that creates some consistency, and we also honor inconsistency. Not everyone treats an impression the same. So if I have a video impression and a linear impression, we don't just smush that together and say 800 people saw it, because guess what? At the end of the day, if you don't value those the same way, we need to make them visible to you. And then you make some decisions on how you might combine them or not. Because at the end of the day, it's, all fun and games until someone loses a KPI. And then they're like, what the hell happens?
Sure. So are we converging or are we diverging? Let's talk about the innovation that's taking place. Karen.
I think that right now we're still in this storming phase. Everyone's trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. Everyone's trying to figure out, to your point, the fragmentation.
Sophomore year.
Yes, exactly. It's those awkward. We were in our awkward teen years at this moment in time, and we're trying to figure out who we could talk to figure out who we want to be. And in my mind, there's going to be more and more fragmentation. So beyond, viewership fragmenting all over the place, just trying to figure out how do we pull these together. And to Drew's point, trying to just make sure that we're enabling those journeys to so they proverbially burn your hand on whatever stove you need to, and we still have time in that land of expansion. But I do think it's all going to come down to enablement of the right ones, and I think there will be a comeback to center for a couple key ones. But I also think it's behooves our industry to keep multiple in the race, so we can find a way to keep getting better and better and better and stop being so complicated. Because again, what the things we've learned from digital that we can now pull into the greater video ecosystem is that all of Drew's V's, like that nailed it. And how do we just make sure that we are never not approaching that situation with this idea that tomorrow it may all fade away. We need to get better every single day. So in the spirit of innovation, I think we are still in those awkward teen years. And at this point in time, we still have some schooling left to go before we figure out what we want to be.
Thanks, Karen. Drew, what's your final advice to the market when it comes to innovation?
Well, certainly that was our V for Vendetta inspired little V's anyway.
Nice.
But
so we've got a fifth V.
Whether you want to say we're in our awkward teen phase, or it really is very much around a now, next, and future. And I would certainly say that we are doing a lot to take the steps now that we can. And when we say, are we converging more or not? I know that I can send, and when we have discussions, I can have discussions around a converged video buy, and that actual deal that we're cutting may be ahead of where the technology is right now. Meaning that, can I transact that the way that I need to transact that through every step of the process? Karen was talking about it before. The order, getting the performance back, how we reconcile it all. Things that I get really excited about, which is sad, but that's important stuff. Where we have to go is, frankly, encourage innovation, encourage folks to, I can't recall who said it. It was one of the investment leads, but they basically said, look, if we need to transact it, we will, meaning that they will push innovation. They will push us, and we need to support it. The number one thing I could say is, roll up your sleeve. I've rolled up already. Roll up your sleeves. Learn this. That's what we do. See, thank you, Jeremy. Roll up your sleeves, learn it, understand what you're looking to do. And then these kinds of conversations, it's like, and not just for the sake of talking, converse and do, and put together realistic plans for how you can step forward, helps everyone. If there's someone, whether on the buy side or sell side, we'd love to talk to you about where you're looking to go next. We have a take on it, and we want to talk about how to support it. I know that's a lot of words, but that's how you move forward.
Amazing. I wanted to thank you both, Karen from Comcast Advertising, Drew from MediaOcean. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate so much feedback and knowledge. And thank you again to ComScore for sponsoring this series focused on currency. See you soon.